Hello and welcome to All About Cars, and today we're going to talk about the Tata Gravitas. We're going to talk about, or we're going to tell you a little bit about the things that we liked and we didn't about the new Hyundai i20 because we've driven it, and we're going to talk about the safety ratings that we've just gotten in the NCAP for three of the Indian cars, and then of course we'll take your questions. First, the Gravitas, Tata Gravitas, the 7-seat or 3-row version of the Tata Harrier was shown at the Auto Expo, was supposed to come out before Diwali. Diwali is just around the corner and the car is not going to be launched now. Now Tata has officially said that it will come in, let's say, the last quarter of the financial year 2021, which means you're looking at January, February, thereabouts for the Gravitas. Now, how and where is it going to fit in? So the Gravitas will go up against the MG Hector Plus and it will go up against the XUV 500. All three cars have 3 rows of seating. The Gravitas should cost about 50,000 bucks more than the respective trim of the Harrier on which it is based. The wheelbase for the two cars is the same. The length for the Gravitas is slightly longer. It's got a slightly longer rear overhang. And to improve the headroom for the last row of occupants, Tata has also added a bit of step on the Gravitas roof, which is not there in the Harrier. So, is it a car to look forward to? Maybe. I mean, Tata's made some improvements with the Harrier. All those improvements we will see in the Gravitas. It should come with the same drivetrain options. Maybe we'll see that elusive petrol, turbo petrol also coming in the Gravitas. Let's see. And like we said, it'll come at a premium of about 50,000 bucks over the Harrier. And so you're looking at 18 to a little over 20 ex-showroom for the Gravitas, and probably it won't start with the XC trim. You would probably just have higher trims to justify the added cost that the Gravitas would come with. And now let's talk about the i20. So we drove it, lots of options that it comes with in terms of drivetrains. So we'll just quickly run you through the things that we liked and the things that we didn't. So among the things that we liked, the steering has improved dramatically compared to the older car. Of course, there is still not enough feel in the steering, but it reacts off-center really well, which wasn't the case with the older i20. You've also got lots of space, boot space, rear occupant space, wide shoulder room, lots of knee room. So that's there. Again, top spec versions like the Asta O have lots of features there. And good visibility, easy to drive. We drove the diesel, we drove the petrol. The diesel, again, the clutch isn't very heavy, though we would have liked the pedals to be placed slightly better. Constant stop and go traffic can affect a little bit. I mean, your feet can start paining, but not so much. So we spent a lot of time doing that. So, but yeah, easy to drive, good car thereabouts. And the things that we didn't like, the interior quality should have been a step up over the Elite i20, given that it is pricier, especially towards the top. I mean, the difference is huge in the top spec versions with the turbo, etc. But you don't get that. And as we said in in our review video, you should see that instead of this matte flat black plastic, maybe they could have used a little more gloss plastic to make a difference, maybe lighter colors to bring that slight quality feel to it. But overall quality levels could have been better on that car. Apart from that, we would have liked to see a manual with the 1-liter turbo. Right now it just comes with the DCT and iMT. Great gearbox, the DCT, but the manual would have been nicer. This whole hot hatch thing that Hyundai is saying would have gone really well if there was a manual. But also the ride quality is all right. I think it's a little soft, so over smaller bumps it rides well. Slightly deeper bumps, you can feel it. It tends to collapse and then bounce back. So maybe that's something that they could have worked at. We've seen that cars like the Venue, the Creta, even the new Verna, they've done well in terms of ride and handling balance. I think that balance is not as good on the i20. So yeah, is it a car, is it worth buying for the price that it is at? I think it is. Most of the people have gone down to comparing that why should we buy the i20 when we can buy the likes of the Sonet and the Venue for the same amount of money, compact SUV versus hatchback. So what you're getting with a compact SUV in both these cases compared to the i20 is actually lesser space, to me, it makes sense to buy the i20. You get a more car-like feel. You're sitting low. Of course, visual appeal or bragging rights might be higher with the SUVs, but if I were to buy, I would probably buy the i20 because in the city it just makes more sense. And now let's talk about the crash test ratings that were done for 3 Indian cars by Global NCAP or GNCAP. The Maruti Suzuki Presso, the Hyundai Grand i10 Nios, and the Kia Seltos. Now GNCAP takes base versions of the cars and then puts them through an offset test, crash test at 64 kilometers per hour. The Indian test is done at 56 kilometers per hour, and all these cars have to pass the Indian test for them to be able to, be sold in the Indian market. So 64 is higher than what the Indian government or the Indian ruling says. And so it's expected that most manufacturers would probably build cars, be it emissions, be it safety, be it whatever else, to the norms specified by the government. Just like our sub 4 meter, this whole thing about having petrol engines under 1.2, having diesel engines under 1.5 for cars that need to measure under 4. So naturally, manufacturers are in the business of making money. Every business is all about that. So, and do they flaunt the rules? No, they don't, but they're meeting the requirements that are there. Now let's get to the scores. Presso scores a 0. The base version only comes with the single side airbag. If there were 2 airbags, if it had a few active and passive safety features, then of course the scores would have been higher, because that's how NCAPs work. In case of the Nios, it was 2 stars, and in case of the Seltos, 3 stars. So it's a function of the body structure, how much deformation is taking place in the front of the car. It's also a function of the features, safety features, active and passive, that the car comes with. And because only the base version is being considered for this test, so naturally the Indian cars are at, let's say, a little handicap, because you are also looking at cost. If you make a car really pricey to fit in all the safety features, then of course people won't buy it. I mean, look at all of us going and saying i20 is pricey, right? Because you add any bits and features, it's going to cost more. Would we be willing to pay more money for 4 airbags, 6 airbags, added active and passive safety features just so we could get more stars in GNCAP? No. Majority of the buyers would, but that doesn't mean that this rating of 0, 2 and 3 is something to celebrate. Of course it's not. Is it something to worry about? Maybe, maybe not, depending on how you use it. But yes, I mean, we've seen Tata Motors, we've seen Mahindra get really high ratings for some of their models, and again on GNCAP base version. So there's definitely something to learn there. And maybe it is also a function of the weight, because how much you're going to build into the crumple zone in terms of at the end it's about how much the car is deformed, right? So if there is a better crumple zone or more crumple zone in that sense, in layman term, then there is more energy dissipation before it gets to the shell, so your shell remains intact. So but that's for 64. Now, would these cars do equally well if the crash test was conducted at 120? Absolutely not. So it's a function of the speed, it's function of the market, it's a function of the cost. So there are a lot of things. So it's very easy to point fingers and blame, but maybe that's not the right way to look at it, in my opinion. At least that's what I feel. At the end, we're looking at a price-sensitive market where we are, and everything is dictated by that. And of course, I mean, all these cars are meeting the minimum or basic norms that the Indian government has laid out for them. So yeah, these are my 2 bits on the whole crash test rating that we've got. And now let's take some questions, and let's start with Instagram. We've got Srijan, and he wants to buy a petrol hatchback for 5 lakh rupees, and he's looking at good ground clearance and safety features. He is keen on the Ignis, and he wants to know whether it's a good option to go for. So the Ignis is a good option to go for, no doubt. When we had the car and we drove it, I mean, it's been a while because the car's been in the market for some time, and it's a very happy car, very nice car to drive. It's probably not as agile, let's say, as the Swift, but overall I think, and it's also not extremely spacious, but it's a nice car to have, and if you're 2 to 4 people, I think the Ignis makes sense. Next we've got Zishan, and he wants to know if the Altroz diesel is underpowered as well. So yeah, the petrol is not as torquey, as powerful as we'd like. I think Tata is already working on a turbo version of that, and it should come soon. The diesel is absolutely fine. It's got 200 Newton meters of torque. It's a flat torque curve, so we wouldn't call the diesel Altroz underpowered at all. Now let's take some questions off Facebook, and we've got Pratik, who is looking for a good petrol automatic car, and the price range is up to 12 lakh rupees, and I mean, he's okay with both a premium hatchback and a compact SUV, but the needs are very clear: safety, spaciousness, good performance, driving comfort, good build quality, and low maintenance in the long run. So everything that you can ask for in a car, Pratik wants. And family of 4, so he wants to know which one to go for. So we'd say that it makes more sense if you want driving comfort and performance coming in, then maybe you could look at a hatchback, because it'll be more focused towards that, and your options when it comes to safety, performance, spaciousness, etc. in hatchback, you could look at the new i20. Yes, it's a little more expensive than it needs to be, but you can go for the turbo petrol, the 1 liter, either with an iMT or the DCT, and the Asta and Asta O versions do offer a fair amount of kit, and it should be around 12, if not on road, the next showroom for sure. The other options is you can look at the Nexon in terms of spaciousness, safety, but it comes with an AMT, so there's that don't get the same amount of refinement that you would get with a conventional automatic in that sense. And if you're willing to wait, though we've not sampled the Magnite yet, the top spec Magnite turbo petrol, again, it's supposed to be reasonably spacious, it's supposed to come with a fair amount of kit, and it will be under 12 lakhs. So that's also something that might be something that you want to consider, but we'll only be able to tell you whether it is after we've driven it, and we should be, I think, driving it next week. So yeah, if you can hold on, that'll be good. Ankit wants to know, he says he's from Rajasthan, and he wants to know which is a good hatchback to go for. He wants mileage, safety, and spaciousness. He has 3 options: Baleno, Altroz, and new i20. So if you want mileage, then of course the Baleno is a great option to go for. It's a light car, it's got efficient engine, so works. The Altroz not so efficient because it's a heavy car with a little less powerful torquey engine, so it needs to work hard, so it doesn't do well on the mileage front or as well, but it does score really high on safety, and also in terms of spaciousness, I think the Altroz is a nice spacious car. But if you want to combine all 3, then you might want to look at the i20. It's spacious, it's efficient, it's not too heavy, but of course it is a little more expensive than the other 2. So if you can afford, if you can extend your budget, maybe you can look at the i20. Anuvind is saying, or has asked us, that he's looking for a car up to 15 lakh rupees and wants a petrol powered car. Wants to know which is the best engine chassis combination that he can go for, and he wants a powerful engine, and he wants handling, and he's okay with a manual transmission. So if you want, and he says SUVs and sedans only. So we'd say go for an SUV, we'd say go for the Kia Seltos, since you want that sort of handling prowess to come into the SUV, and you want a good combo of an engine and a chassis. So the turbo petrol on the Seltos is a good option to go for. Yeah. Ashish has asked us, actually it's 3 questions in one, and they're all regarding the iMT or the intelligent manual transmission that comes on Kia cars and on Hyundai. So he wants to know, can an iMT be fitted to a diesel car? Yes, it can be, and we won't be surprised if Hyundai or Kia launches one of that versions in one of their, like the Cretas, the Seltos soon. Second question is the transmission, or if the transmission is reliable enough, why don't commercial vehicles use it too? Because your need is very different. I think in developed markets, when you look at intercity travel for buses, etc., it's all automatic. And when it comes to trucks, heavy haulers, etc., then you need a lot of, it gives you better control. And that's why I think people choose to go for conventional manuals instead of iMTs. Plus, I'm not very clearly sure about the functionality or inside or the sort of wear that might go in, because though Kia and Hyundai both say that the wear is less compared to manual, but that's given an average driver who may or may not know how to use the clutch properly. But that's a question that I don't really have an answer for, but I'm just thinking aloud and letting you know that maybe that's why commercial vehicles, diesels, don't come with iMT. And finally, his third part of the question is, what premium should iMT transmission command over the manual option, given the AMT commands 40,000? So I think what you have less working parts compared to, let's say, an AMT, because you're doing the shifting yourself. Only the clutch actuation and deactuation is something that is being handled. So maybe it should cost a little less, but I don't know. I mean, even 30,000 more compared to 40,000 for the AMT would make sense. That would be my sense of the costing thing. Jason wants to know if the Kia Sonet HTX, petrol or diesel, he's okay with either fuel, which one is more value for money, considering that he drives around 1,000 kilometers a month. So we'd say go for the petrol, no doubt. It makes more sense because 1,000 kilometers, there is no point living with a car that's heavier, and of course diesel in terms of cost would also be more for the same spec for specs. So go for the petrol. And now let's take some questions, a couple of questions off Twitter. And we've got Sandeep, who has asked us, what's the best automatic hatchback to buy under 10 lakhs? So we'd say that you have three choices. You've got the i20, you've got the Honda Jazz, and you've got the Maruti Suzuki Baleno. The i20, you would probably get the base version, so you'd only want to buy it if you like the styling of the i20. The Jazz makes the most amount of sense because you get lots of space, lots of practicality, and decent equipment on the version that will be under 10 lakhs CVT equipped. And if you want the best spec car for this sort of money with a CVT or with an automatic, then of course Baleno is the one to go for. Next up, we've got Rohit, and Rohit wants to know which of the two he should go for, the Creta or the City, and he's looking for an automatic, so both cars with CVTs. Anyway, the things that he wants to consider or wants us to consider while suggesting an option is a good ride comfort, safety features, engine, automatic transmission, maintenance, better build quality, and the overall winner. So I think it's essentially down to a question of whether you want a sedan or an SUV, because otherwise you get two vehicles that are essentially the same in many ways. There is nothing to choose and say that the Honda CVT works better than the Hyundai CVT or vice versa. I personally like sedans, and I think if you're going to spend time driving in the city, I like the whole low driving position of sedans. I like the whole visibility. Of course, you sit higher in the Creta, and so you got better visibility up front, but not so much on the sides. But the City allows you to do that because you're sitting low, you got a low window line. And so finally, it depends on which one, whether you want a sedan or an SUV, because you can't really go wrong with either car. to me, I mean, like I said, the city, I would go for the city, be it because it's a sedan or even in terms of overall lightness and refinement that comes with a sedan than an SUV. And now let's take some questions off YouTube. Thank you so much for writing in lots of questions on YouTube. And we'll start with Ram Kumar. Ram Kumar says that should you wait for the Magnite or go ahead and book the Altroz? So we'd say wait. There are a lot of promising things that we are hearing about the Magnite, including price, features, etc. And we will be driving the car next week. So we'd say hold on, we'll have something for you then, and then you can make a decision. OMB T4 is the name that's there, and OMB wants to buy the new i20. He's also thinking about the Magnite around the same price, but he's concerned about the build quality and the service for the Magnite. So service is something that you need to pay attention to or care about, because Nissan doesn't have as widespread a dealership or as widespread a service network as Hyundai. So Hyundai clearly has a big advantage there. Also, Nissan closed quite a few dealers. For instance, in Bombay, we probably just have one. So you need to see whether you have a dealer close by. You can also go visit the dealer and judge for yourself whether it's a place that you'd want to take your car, get serviced, etc., buy from there, and then decide. But in terms of product, we'd have to drive the Magnite, which we will next week, and then we'll be able to tell you whether simply as products, whether i20 makes more sense or the Magnite makes more sense. Sujit wants to know whether he can go for iMT cars from Hyundai and Kia, and especially those that don't come with a hill hold function, and will that be an issue when driving in the hill area? Well, not really, because just like most other automatics, the iMTs on Kia and Hyundai also come with the creep function. So if you do tend to leave the brake suddenly, yes, and you are in gear, the car will roll back. But if you leave the brake gently, the rollback will not be there, because it is, it's got a creep function. On straight lines, of course, it will go ahead. Slight inclines also, it will probably hold. Very steep inclines, maybe you would have to quickly shift to the throttle to keep it going, but it's similar to any automatic. So I don't think that's a concern really. Surinder wants to know what's the exact launch date for the Nissan Magnite. Now, we don't have that, but we are driving the car next week. The car's already into production, so it's just a matter of time that they will launch the car. But no, we don't have the exact date. Next up, we've got Selvam, and lots of interest in the Magnite clearly, because he also wants to know whether you should go for the Magnite or the Kia Sonet. And I think that interest is essentially because of the price tags that we're seeing, super aggressive price tags and all this stuff, especially the turbo that will come equipped with lots of equipment. But for now, 1,000-kilometer running for Selvam, and he's looking for performance and good service backup. So he's in Trichy. Again, like we said a couple of questions earlier, that you need to see whether you've got a Nissan dealer in close vicinity to where you stay. Go visit it, see it, whether that's the place you want to go, because clearly Nissan, the service network is getting back on track and is growing, but right now I think even when the Magnite is launched, you probably won't have as wide a spread. So you'd have to be mindful about that. And if you find that you have something close by and it's a decent enough dealer in terms of interaction, then sure, it should be okay to go for the Magnite. Now, compared to the Magnite or Sonet, which one should you go product for product? We'll be able to tell you once we drive the Magnite next week. Now, we've got Adish and his essential, he's got a long question with lots of variants for the thing, but he wants to know whether the i20 turbo is steeply priced or not. Now, if we were to look at the previous i20 pricing and the amount of changes that they've made, the new i20 was always going to be more expensive, right, in terms of how it's come about. But the market situation was such that maybe they could have priced it lower. And but the jump from having the Elite i20 with a 1.2 liter engine to the turbo is of course big, but that's also because the engine is still, I think, not made in India. It's still coming in, and turbo engines do cost more than naturally aspirated engines, lower capacity or not. and then you're talking about an iMT, which will again cost more than a regular manual transmission. So of course the price keeps going up. Could it have been priced lower? Yes. Are you being fleeced with this sort of money? No. So if you can afford it, of course you should go for it. And he at the end also asks, will the prices increase post December 2020? So that I think will be a reflection of how well Hyundai does with the i20. If the i20 bookings are big in number, maybe they will push the pricing up. But the overall sentiment, like it's coming from you, is that the i20 is already pricey. So maybe that would hold Hyundai back from increasing the prices significantly. They will probably go for small increment in prices, which will be under all our radars, and then eventually one day when we want to go and buy, we'll find that the price increase is significant. But I don't think it's going to happen post-December, maybe over the course of 2021. Abdul wants to know, what is the probability of using off-road mode or all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive in an SUV on a daily basis? So, and is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. The probability of you using all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, etc., especially in cities like Bombay, Delhi, etc., is almost zero. You will probably only need four-wheel drive if you end up encountering, let's say, snow or maybe ice, or you find yourself during the monsoons with a landslide and slushy conditions that have happened, and so you would probably need all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive to pull you out of that situation, but the probability is very, very low. Agraja wants to know whether he should go for a CVT or a DCT, and he also wants to know whether he should go for the Magnite XV, which is expected to be priced at 9.55, or should he choose the i20 Asta, which is 9.6, or the Venue S DCT, which is 9.66. So I think between the Magnite and the Venue, on the face of it, it seems the Venue might make a better option. We've lived with the Venue. We know it's a fantastic car. It's not very spacious, but otherwise I think it's a great car. But of course, we will drive the Magnite and then we'll know how it competes. But you're looking at similar engine capacity, turbo power, and then it finally depend on the sort of interior look and feel and overall driving refinement that comes into the picture. But that we'll know when we drive the Magnite. But if you want to buy now, I think the Venue is a great choice. No two ways about it. We wholeheartedly recommend that car. It's a good car. That or the i20. So again, if you want an SUV, then of course it's a no-brainer. Venue it is. If you what you would get in the i20, what additional you'd get on the i20 compared to the Venue is probably more space, especially for people sitting at the back. And you will probably get a sportier seating position and better visibility in the city up front and on the side. So, yeah. Rahul wants to know, I mean, he's got a very, very precise question. Seltos, GTX or Harrier, and why? So we'd say the Seltos because we've driven the two cars back to back, and the Seltos may not have the same sort of modern road presence as the Harrier. It might not look as good as the Harrier. But it's just when it comes to refinement, when it comes to driving dynamics, when it comes to all of those things that make a product come together, the Seltos just seems to do a better job than the Harrier. Ganesh wants a sub 4 meter petrol automatic SUV, just wants comfort and safety and driving in the city. Which one should you go for? If you want more space, then you can look at the Nexon. It will come with an AMT, however, and if you don't want seating for 5, you're okay with 4, then you could look at the Sonet. Vishal wants to know whether should go for a petrol or a diesel running is 3,000 kilometers, especially if the vehicles are priced similar. Since your running is 3,000 kilometers and maybe above, we'd say diesel, because in the long run it would, and given that they're similarly priced, right? So you only have an advantage in terms of fuel efficiency that comes with diesel. You have an advantage with lesser pricing for diesel. So if you're going to spend the same amount of money and you're going to drive more than 3,000 kilometers, then diesel makes more sense. Swapna has written to us and has asked us about the Octavia. The budget that has been referred to is between 20 to 25 lakhs for an automatic car, and the question is whether the Octavia will come, and when it comes, the DSG, will it be priced about 25 lakh or thereabouts? And we'd say, yeah, when the new Octavia does come, that's where it's going to be priced at, but we are not sure when it's going to roll into the country, so I won't wait for that. I mean, there are options that you can consider, but if you can wait, sure. I mean, but there is no clear timeline on when the new Octavia will be coming. Praveen wants to know which version of the i20 you should go for, and if the turbo engine is worth looking into. So turbo is definitely a good engine to go for. If you drive it right, it's also fuel efficient, but of course it's got lots of power, good torque, flat torque curve, so nicer to drive. And which version of the i20 you should go for? I think the Asta is a fine trim to go for. It's not as expensive as the Asta, but you get most of the bells and whistles, so that's what we'd recommend. Now Ashish is asking us, he's interested in the Ford EcoSport Titanium and Petrol, and he wants to know whether he should go for the EcoSport or are there better options. So if you really want the EcoSport, then you can definitely go for it, but if you want the Petrol, we'd say that wait for a bit because it's going to get a turbo petrol soon, so that might be a better option to go for. And if you're not set on the EcoSport, then of course there's the Venue and the Sonet that you can look at. Great SUVs, good cars, and good petrol engines, especially the turbos, to go for. Vigneshwar has written to us and he's asked us what are the great value for money cars to go for under 10 lakh rupees. He wants an automatic, and he's keen on the Baleno CVT. So like we answered a little earlier, the Baleno is probably the best spec'd automatic hatchback that you can get for under 10 lakhs. You also have the option of the Jazz and the i20. The i20 is the base, so not as well spec'd. The Jazz comes with more space and practicality compared to the Baleno. But again, the Baleno is the best spec. So if you like the Baleno CVT, sure, go for it. Raghav is asking us, is it really worth shelling out 9.2 lakh on naturally aspirated petrol engine for the top spec of i20? So the thing is that the 1.2 on the i20 or the 1.2 liter engine from Hyundai is a good engine to begin with in any case. I mean, it's not like a powerhouse or not lots and lots of power and torque, but the engine is already it's almost like a bulletproof engine. So I don't think that's a concern, and since you're going to get a top spec car for that sort of money, I think it's fair that yeah, you can go for, absolutely. Now Sachi wants to know whether it would make sense to go for the fully spec, top spec Tata Harrier automatic, or would it be worth waiting for the Citroen C5? The budget is 25 lakhs. So the Citroen C5 Aircross will be a CKD when it comes here. The Harrier is made in India, and so the C5 will be costly, and it will not fit into the 25 lakh on-road budget at all. So yeah, if you can expand your budget, maybe, but otherwise the C5 will be more expensive. Now Saurabh wants to know whether automatics are really selling that well, that manufacturers are concentrating on automatics, and even reviewers like us have altogether stopped paying attention to manuals or manual gearboxes in new car launches. So depending on which market you are, I think automatics are finding a lot of takers now, especially in bigger cities. And it's not a concept that we had earlier, that automatics were thirsty and they were not refined and not so great to drive. That's not the case anymore. We've got new tech, automatics have evolved, and in a lot of cases automatics just make more sense than manuals. And why reviewers are concentrating more on automatics than on manuals? That could probably be a reflection of the press cars that we get. Now manufacturers want to give us the top spec cars because that truly showcases what the car is and what all it comes with, and increasingly top spec cars come with automatics. So that's probably why you see that, but it's not like the manuals are dying. There are a lot of markets where manuals make sense. Yeah, so that would be it. Saurabh has another question, and this time he's asking that why is Mahindra pushing the add-on kits for the Thar so aggressively? He feels that it just makes the car look bad and less classy. So pushing add-on kits or accessories is something that manufacturers do, not just Mahindra, but lots of other manufacturers also do, because it's another business avenue. It's another thing, for manufacturers to build their business on. Plus, it gives customers an option or to personalize their car, and everybody wants that my car should look a little different from the car next, the next car. So I think not having options is going to be a problem for a lot of customers, because especially in that class for Mahindra, we've already seen that people go out and get Thars modified in various ways and add kits and all. So I think it's a smart thing for Mahindra to do that. It helps their business. It gives customers confidence that it's coming from Mahindra, so of course quality levels will be high. So I think it's a very smart approach. Rupesh has asked us whether between Sonet and Magnite in terms of service and safety, which is a better car. Like we've said in the video earlier, that we're going to drive the Magnite soon, and then we'll know how the car is in terms of performance. Again, in terms of service, Nissan has had a few of its dealerships shut down, but they're coming back. And the important thing would be to see whether you've got a Kia dealership close by or a Nissan dealership close by. Visit them, see where you get a good feel of how customer service is, and then you can decide that which is the brand that will offer you better service. But as far as products goes, let us drive the Magnite next week, and then we'll have an answer for you. So Manoj has asked us which is more value for money, the iMT, the i20 iMT Asta or the i20 1.2 liter Asta O. So the iMT comes with the 1 liter turbo engine, and of course you've said the other one is the 1.2, which is a naturally aspirated engine. The 1 liter turbo, more power, more torque, modern engine, and the 1.2 is a reliable, bulletproof engine, but more for commuting than enthusiastic driving. But yes, between the Asta and the Asta O gets more features than the Asta. And overall, if you don't want an automatic, I think you should go for the Asta O with the 1.2. And now we've got 2 non-car buying questions, and we'll just take them. So let me just look it up. One we've got on Twitter from Rohit, and he's asked us, what do we recommend? Do we recommend ceramic coating or paint protection film? And he's talking about a black car. So which one would we choose? So we definitely go for ceramic coating, and not because it's the better option in that sense, but having a polythene wrapped around your car just doesn't give you the same sort of feel. You touch it, feel it. Ceramic is just more organic, and the black color, the way it shines, etc. Ceramic would be the way to go. I mean, that's what we choose, not the polythene wrapped car, because that's just doesn't have a good feel to it. The next non-car buying question we have is from Farooq on, we got it on our comments on the YouTube video that we did last week. And Farooq wants to know, in the aftermarket accessory market, which is the brand to go for, be it seat covers, mats, other accessories, etc. So we'd say that it's best to stick with the genuine accessories from the company, because they have a stake in it. They might outsource it to a brand to build it, but their name is carried on it, which means that in terms of quality, in terms of reliability, in terms of how it ages, they would have paid attention to it. They would have looked into it, and in terms of development, so it would fit better, it would last better or longer. So genuine accessories is a safer, nicer option to go for. Yes, you might not have the same amount of options available, but I mean, if I were in your place, I'd definitely go for the genuine accessories from the OEM or the manufacturer themselves. And that's a wrap on All About Cars. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.